Everyone's going to talk about Caleb Williams' performance in his NFL debut. But the bigger story from the Chicago Bears' comeback win over the Tennessee Titans was all about the defense, how bad it was in the first half and how excellent it was in the second.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1. You can follow the podcast at Locked On Bears on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, where you can keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use our promo code LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. On the show today, we will get to Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears offense, but we'll start with this Bears defense. What was going so poorly for them in the first half, what changed in the second half, and really took off by the time we got to the end of the fourth quarter, where this defense carried this offense to victory. And we can have some time to be concerned about the offense, but we should also be celebrating what the defense was able to do and also check in on what was going wrong with the defense early on. And the bigger picture thing here is that for both the good and the bad the Chicago Bears did in week one, we need to make sure we don't overreact too strongly to just one game's worth of performance, because a lot of funky things tend to happen in week one across the NFL that aren't then really seen throughout the rest of the season. That week one's a little bit more of an outlier every single season. And I think some of that was the case for this Bears defense to start this game. I mean, giving up 17 points to the Tennessee Titans in the first half was not what we expected from that group coming out of the gate. The Titans were running the ball all over them, gashing them for, a big, was it 26-yard touchdown run, I think, from Tony Pollard there that, broke away for the big score. Will Levis had a couple of nice scrambles. Tajay Spears was making some plays. It just seemed like whatever the Titans wanted to do on the ground, they were getting it, especially in that first half. They averaged over 7 yards per carry, 115 rushing yards with the score in the first half. And it was all sorts of concepts, all sorts of misdirection. And it seemed like the Bears were having trouble keeping up with where the ball was going, getting off of blocks, getting free over there, and trying to find, new defensive line rotations, some new different guys in there. The linebackers are trying to read off of. It was messy. And then, the Titans could go to play action off of that and had some things rolling there for Will Levis. Everything seemed to change for this Bears defense, not just in the second half, but particularly when the special teams unit blocked that punt. It just felt like there was an energy that was brought back to this defense. And that is what feels to me like what this defense needs. There's a certain energy that they feed off of, and I think they were a little bit deflated after that first half, but they found a way to kind of make a stop there on that first drive of the second half. They still gave up a couple of first downs, but Will Levis avoided a couple of sacks, but then missed an open receiver on third down, and that was when the blocked punt happened, and things changed entirely from there for this Bears defense. Without the luxury of being able to go through the all-22 film yet, it's hard to say definitively what was different and what kind of adjustments the Bears made in that second half, but just having watched it live, a couple of things stand out to me as why things were better in the second half and struggled in the first half. I think, first of all, in the first half, the Bears were keeping things a little bit more, I'll say vanilla from a pass rush standpoint. A lot of just four-man rushes and a regular look, right, where it's just your two defensive ends and your two defensive tackles. They were rotating some different personnel in there, but they weren't having cornerbacks and linebackers and safeties coming up near the line of scrimmage and showing blitz or blitzing off of that. Like, they did a little bit, but not nearly as much in the second half. In the second half, they gave a lot more different looks to Will Levis at the line of scrimmage. It didn't mean I don't have the blitz numbers. We can't say definitively whether they blitzed more in the second half. I think they did, but we don't know that for sure. But the way that it looked to the quarterback was a lot different. A lot more of Edmonds and Edwards hovering at the line of scrimmage, sometimes blitzing, sometimes not. Kyler Gordon getting after the quarterback a couple times there, the safeties as well. Like a lot more for Levis to have to read pre-snap in the first half, in the second half, whereas in the first, it was a bit more basic for him up front. I also think the Bears found some ways to just kind of experiment with personnel there, and the Titans started running over and over again at really the left side of the Bears, or left side of the offense, the right side of the defense, running at Austin Booker, running at Darrell Taylor, and the Bears were having trouble getting their linebackers free on that end. They also, changed some different things up defensive tackle-wise. Byron Cowart played a lot more in the second half than the first half, and I think he was being a lot more physical in the running game than what they were getting from, say, Chris Williams, who had come off the bench on defensive tackle. I think that was helping the linebackers stay free, and I also think the Titans changed a little bit what they were running offensively in the second half. Anecdotally, it felt to me like the Titans were getting a lot more success with their gap scheme in the first half, like pulling linemen and more physical downhill running that way. And the second half, they went back to more zone that the Bears could use their speed to keep up with. I mean, it's a lot of individual things here that not any one of these is the sole reason the Bears defense played so much better, but it's kind of a combination of, all right, let's adjust, let's look a little more aggressive, let's throw some different things at Will Levis, let's get our personnel a little bit better here. And then some of it too is like Titans feeling the momentum shifting away from them and Levis trying to do a little bit too much, forcing too many things. And I just think the block punt gave so much energy to guys like Darrell Taylor and Andrew Billings, who both had great games. I mean, those two guys were absolute studs for this Bears defense. Darrell Taylor, of course, had the 2 sacks, had a couple other quarterback hits there, lodged the ball loose on the forced fumble, and that was a huge turnover for this team. Like, the Bears pass rush wasn't great all game, but it made enough of the big plays that the Bears needed. Like, there were times when Will Levis had time to throw in the pocket, but there was plenty of times when he was moved off of his spot as well. I'm curious what the final pressure numbers end up looking like. But, Dexter got a sack in there. Darrell Taylor had a couple of sacks there. Like, they were able to get some different guys involved in this pass rush, Andrew Billings as well, that ended up making Will Levis's life a little bit more difficult. And then finally, after wearing him down and slowly swinging that momentum further and further, and Levis has to press to do more and more and more, then the turnovers come, or the real, the interceptions, I should say. The pick 6 to Tyreek Stevenson when Will Levis is trying to throw it away, and then, at the end of the game, Jalen Johnson seals it with an interception there. And for me, like, Tyreek Stevenson is still kind of in this young, volatile cornerback stage where, he got beat for a touchdown early in that game when probably shouldn't have allowed a touchdown there, when the tight end kind of just moved past him and made the catch in the back of the end zone. He got burned deep on a big one. Calvin Ridley was open on one that Levis wasn't able to hit, but there were a couple times Stevenson got burned and gave up big plays that hurt the defense. But when he comes back and has a huge pick 6 in the fourth quarter, all is forgiven and all. I mean, and it is. I mean, it still turns out to be a really strong performance from him. His performance was crucial to the Bears' success, even when it was also, especially in the first half, crucial to the Bears' failure there. So the ups and downs of this Bears defense, of letting up 17 points in the first half, which is way more than we're used to, and then shutting them out in the second half and putting their own points on the board, that's what decided this game, more so than the very clear struggles of Caleb Williams and the Bears offense, which is important, but didn't necessarily tell you exactly what was happening in this football game, because there were a lot of different moving parts that led to the Bears' offensive struggles, and I think there's still a lot there to build off of, in addition to the things to be a little bit concerned about. But to me, the big takeaway was that this offense looked close. And that's kind of the bare minimum of what we needed to see from them. So we'll take a look at what wasn't working for that group and how they can start to put this all together a little bit better moving forward next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by PrizePicks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports, because unlike some of the other DFS platforms, with PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. The other sites, you're setting a lineup and you're trying to have the #1 lineup out of 500 people all in the same contest. And if you're not, if you're not in that top less than 1%, then you're not going to win anything. But with PrizePicks, you just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. And if your picks are correct, you'll watch the winnings roll in. They've got a special deal for Caleb Williams throughout the month of September. Every week, Caleb Williams' stat projection for passing yards is set at 1 passing yard. So all he needs to do is get more than 1 passing yard, and that's an automatic win for you every single week throughout September on PrizePicks. So Download the PrizePicks app today and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks to get $50 when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks. Run your game. The Locked On Bears podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp provides online therapy that's here to help you be your best self, to reconnect to the kind of curiosity you had as a child, to find that sense of wonder, to really get back to being your best version of yourself and living your life in the most whole and authentic way. I do online therapy every single week, and it's a really important part of my own personal mental health regimen, and that's why I recommend BetterHelp. If you've been thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, and it's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears offense underwhelmed. There's not a lot of sugarcoating what they got from that side of the ball. A couple of field goal drives and a very nice 2-point conversion after the pick six, but really just a couple of field goal drives. When they had 3 separate drives starting in Tennessee Titans territory, and they came away with 6 points on those drives. And so everyone in his NFL debut is going to look to Caleb Williams, of course, and see 14 of 29 for 93 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, a 55.7 passer rating, a just barely sub 50% completion percentage. I don't have the yards per attempt mathed out there, but it's not good. The stat line, the box score, not good from Caleb Williams. The eye test, not a ton better. There were some inaccurate throws that we're just not used to seeing from Caleb Williams from his college tape. Like, it was a rollout to the right where he tried to throw to Swift in the flat and just kind of, just sailed it. And there were a couple of those where it's just like flat out missed a guy. And sometimes he was under pressure and on the move. And of course that, you're going to miss some of those. And sometimes it wasn't as difficult of a throw as it ended up looking based on the accuracy of some of those plays. And that needs to get better. And a lot of this is, I think, understandable for a rookie quarterback in his first game. Won't be as understandable for a rookie quarterback in, say, his 3rd game or his 5th game. But in his first game, with brand new receivers, brand new offensive line, brand new offensive scheme for everybody, there's going to be mistakes. There's going to be some inconsistency at times. You were hoping to see a few more big plays to outweigh those, kind of like we talked about with Tyreek Stevenson, sort of a giveth, taketh away thing there. The Bears didn't get a lot of the giveth there from Caleb Williams, but a couple of things stand out most to me from his performance. One, I don't remember, having just watched it live, so, asterisks here without the All-22 film, I don't remember a pass that really felt like a bad decision. A play where he put the ball in harm's way and it should have been intercepted, should have been a turnover of some kind, and oh boy, he got away with a bad decision on that play. I don't remember any of those off the top of my head. The one that got popped up super high in the air and then Rome Odunze ended up kind of coming down with and then fumbling, that weird play that hit a defensive player, and maybe when you look at the film, that might have been, interceptable, or as PFF deems them, turnover-worthy throws. I mean, maybe. That was such a bang-bang play. I didn't get a good look at how potentially interceptable it was, and the film will back that up. But for the most part, 99% of the time, Caleb Williams wasn't making bad decisions with his passes. Again, inaccurate on a few of them, but not putting the ball in harm's way or being totally reckless with them. Maybe he missed open receivers that he wasn't looking at, but like the ball that he threw that left his hand was never like, oh, why did he throw it there? That was a bad place to throw the ball. On top of that, let's not forget, he hit Keenan Allen in the hands in the end zone for what should have been a touchdown at the end of the first half. It should have been 17-10 Bears going into halftime with Caleb Williams having a touchdown on his record there. But instead, that's dropped, then batted pass, then field goal, so it's 17-3 at halftime instead. But there was very nearly a touchdown here. And there were, at least there was another drop by DJ Moore in the game. Again, drops don't excuse the other inaccurate passes from Caleb Williams. Some of these were definitely inaccurate. But there were also some drops there too, that the receivers didn't all help him out as much as we would expect from DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, etc. So I'm nowhere close to panicking or worried even about Caleb Williams after one game, because offensively, they couldn't run the ball. Swift got a couple little things going here and there. The running back rotation is weird. I want to talk more about that, this week on the podcast, because Swift and Homer and Velus Jones and Khalil Herbert were all involved, and Roschon Johnson was inactive, and I don't understand exactly what the plan is there. But with no running game came a fairly one-dimensional offense, and of course you're trailing 17-0 or 17-3 at halftime. It's going to be a one-dimensional offense. You need to pass to get back into the game, but we've talked all offseason about how what the Bears need to do is run the ball and take it easy on Caleb Williams, not make him have to climb back from a 17-point deficit like he did in college all the time. The Bears around Caleb Williams were not nearly able to support him as well as they should have. And a big part of the running game issue was an offensive line issue. That was also a really big part of pass protection issues. Like this supporting cast around Caleb Williams was supposed to be better. Caleb was supposed to be better as well, but the supporting cast also needed to be better. This is not all on one or all on the other. Tevin Jenkins had a rough time with Devondre Sweat. Nate Davis and Ryan Bates were rotating at right guard, and the center, Coleman Shelton, oh boy, you might have a center issue here. Maybe Ryan Bates needs to play center full-time and switch that out. That's another whole other challenge for Caleb Williams if we need to get to there. But the offense couldn't pass protect super well. They couldn't run block super well. They then couldn't run the ball super well. And the receivers weren't always catching it when Caleb Williams was accurate. So it's not just, Caleb missed some throws, for sure. It was also a lot of other things around him offensively. And some of that I also put on Shane Waldron as play caller and offensive coordinator. It took almost 3 full quarters before they got that, sustained, it was 12, 14 play drive. It still ended in a field goal, but in the second half, they got that drive going. And that felt like the moment in the second half where they made the right adjustments. Because through the first, 2.5 quarters, they kept trying to run their offense as though the offensive line was playing well. Like they kept trying to roll. They tried these rollouts that they kept blowing up, and they'd run these full deep drop back passes for Caleb that they just couldn't hold up the protection very well for. They tried the same kind of running plays over and over again that they couldn't get lanes for. And it wasn't until that last drive of the third quarter that sustained for some real time that, okay, they went to a quicker passing. It's 3 steps drop, quick out to Keenan Allen. 3-step drop, curl out to DJ Moore. Wide receiver screen over here, quick hitting inside zone here. Then they did the fake screen draw play to get the pass rushers coming upfield, right? It felt like, now we have adjusted this offense to account for an offensive line that's struggling. And I wish that had happened sooner, but I'm glad it started to happen. That was when Caleb Williams really got into a rhythm there. I don't like that they then went to a wildcat play in the middle of that drive. That was a weird thing to disrupt the rhythm. I have my qualms with the job Shane Waldron did, but at least there was an adjustment that did seem to somewhat work. It didn't result in a touchdown, but it did get Caleb into a rhythm and a longer sustained offensive drive than we had seen at any point in that game up to that point. Still some weird decisions, but ability to adapt there to an offensive line that was struggling and at least get a couple of field goals late to allow the defense to stay in the game and then, of course, get the interception to put the pressure on the Tennessee Titans that way. So that's why, to me, this Bears offense, we expected it to be slow out the gate and to struggle. I mean, if you listen to our Crossover Thursday podcast last week with Tyler Rowland from Locked On Titans, we went through our game predictions and I said, it's going to be some ugly football. The offenses are going to be worse than we think. There's going to be more punting than we want to see, but ultimately the Bears are going to get a late turnover that wins this game. I was wrong about the score, and both teams ended up with more points than I thought they did, but the flow of the game went about how I called it on our Crossover Thursday podcast. So it's been trying to warn you, hey, offense is not going to be a well-oiled machine. You're not going to have quarterback and receiver on the same page right away. You're going to have questions about this offensive line that linger. That's what we're seeing so far. But they were this close to a Keenan Allen touchdown, and they were this close to a few different big plays offensively. This offense is close. They're not as far as we want them to be, but they're close. And that's the bare minimum of what we needed to see. Is there's some semblance of they could have scored a few more points here and there if one little thing here or there has gone differently. And it was always something different. It wasn't always the same mistake over and over again. So I think there's reason to believe this offense can and will get better. I don't know if that's going to be week 2 against a really good Houston Texans team, but it will get better at some point here down the line. And I think it's all a way of saying, like, it's important that we don't put all of our eggs in what we saw in week one and assume that this offense and this defense are going to be just like this the entire rest of the way. Weird things happen in week one, and I want to make sure that we take some time to talk about why you don't want to overreact and put too much stock into everything we just saw against the Tennessee Titans as being representative of the rest of the season. And we got a couple of good examples that will really help hammer this point home. That's next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by Gametime, the best way to get tickets for all of your favorite live events. If you didn't make it to Soldier Field for Bears Titans, but you were sitting at home seeing a great crowd and a great day for football out there, and you're like, man, really wish I were there, just got to download the Gametime app on your phone because they're going to be the best way to get tickets for Bears games. I used Gametime to go to a couple of Bears games last season, and what I love about it is that, first of all, I can see my view from the seat that I'm purchasing before I buy my ticket. So I know exactly what I'm getting with my ticket purchase. And I also know exactly how much I'm paying because Gametime has all-in pricing. So there aren't any of those added fees at the end of the checkout process that make your tickets cost way more than you thought they would. So whether you're looking for Bears tickets or concerts, comedy shows, theater performances, you name it, they've got all your favorite live events on Gametime. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem our code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Whether the Bears had won or lost this game, I would come to you on this podcast today, right now, to tell you not to overreact too strongly to what you're seeing. Now, if you do want to hear some fun overreaction Monday talk, check out the Locked On NFL podcast. The new Locked On NFL is here with 2 shows every day. First, the madman Tyler Rowland kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso, and then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk alongside Locked On local experts that get you unprecedented NFL insight. There's going to be some overreaction Monday on Locked On NFL. Hopefully not too much about the Chicago Bears. I'm sure Tyler's going to be overreacting to the Titans plenty because his Titans thought they had everything controlled and then didn't. But for the Bears here, I think it's important that, especially for this team that's young with a lot of different moving parts here and a lot of new faces in new places, like, it's just week one. And had they lost, had the second half gone like the first half and the Bears lost an ugly one, relax. And had the Bears dominated for 4 quarters, it's like, hey, let's slow it down. Let's relax, because either way, things are going to be different moving forward than they were in week one. I think back to last year in week one when Jared Goff outdueled Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs in a big week one victory. But every single year, there's games week one where a team wins that you didn't think would win, and then later on down the stretch, turns out they really weren't that good, or vice versa. A team loses, and everyone's like, wow, how did that team lose that game? And then, of course, they figure it out, and later on that season, they're much better. So it's never super indicative one way or the other. And I want to give a shout-out to friend of the show, Jonathan Wood, on Twitter, at Jonathan_Wood1, who had a great stat the morning of the game. He said, C.J. Stroud in his NFL debut, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, averaged only 5.5 yards per pass attempt. Of course, the rest of C.J. Stroud's rookie season was much better, 23 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, right? C.J. Stroud's NFL debut, very underwhelming. Not a huge passing performance. But then we know how great the rest of C.J. Stroud's rookie season was. In the reverse, Will Levis's NFL debut, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 8.2 yards per pass attempt. Really strong debut for Will Levis last season when he debuted. But the rest of his rookie year, 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, only 7 yards per pass attempt. So, Levis had a great debut and then really didn't do a lot else special the rest of his rookie season. C.J. Stroud had a mediocre debut, but then still went on to have one of the best rookie quarterback seasons of all time. And so for Caleb Williams in particular, don't look at this first game and see, oh gosh, under 50% completion percentage, no touchdowns, no interceptions, really, less than 4 yards per pass attempt. No, just over 3 yards per pass attempt when it's all said and done. That's pretty bad as a box score. But it doesn't necessarily mean that, okay, he's always going to be inaccurate and always going to struggle. The offense is going to be this bad, for the rest of the season or even the majority of the season. Like, no, this was one game and they're all going to learn a lot from it. And we're going to see a lot better performances, and maybe we'll see some other performances where they struggle. Like, again, next week against the Houston Texans, it's not exactly a bounce back game type of opportunity. I would expect that the Bears offense is going to struggle against a really good Houston Texans defense, and the Bears defense might not be able to intercept CJ Stroud twice with a pick six the same way that they did Will Levis. Like, it's quite a bit of a different animal there. Although, to be fair, the Colts played the Texans really tough in week 1, so I don't think the Texans are some, invincible team there. The Texans certainly were sweating that one out quite a bit. I know the Colts scored in the fourth quarter to bring it within 2 and then gave up another one and then scored again late to bring it within. Like, they were breathing that one. Maybe that's the Colts being better than we think and the Texans being worse than we think. But nonetheless, like, it's going to be times when things are better and things are worse because the Bears have the Colts then right after that. Like, it's okay. Like, Caleb Williams as a rookie is going to have those moments where he does some brilliant things. And there's probably going to be a stupid interception somewhere. We didn't see a really stupid throw in this game. But, in week 1 of these games, he's just going to have a boneheaded play. Like, every rookie quarterback does that. It's okay. It doesn't mean he's inaccurate or reckless or, any of that kind of stuff. Like, it can just be, rookie quarterback thought he saw something and learned. And then that's where he learns and goes from it. I think the case is true for not just Caleb as a rookie, but the rest of this Bears team, right? Like, with so many new receivers trying to be on the same page of their quarterback, we're still going to see plays where it's a miscommunication and Caleb throws to one spot and the receiver runs to a different spot. That's okay. It won't be okay in week 6, but it's okay in week 1 and maybe even be okay in week 2. But, defensively, so many different new guys on this defensive line. Like, different players are going to have to step up. Like, Montez Sweat, didn't play poorly, but, didn't have the big performance in this game. You didn't have the sack. I think you got some good pressure on the quarterback here and there, but you didn't see like the dynamic game-changing play. I was just going to double check Montez Sweat's stat line. 2 tackles, no tackles for loss, no quarterback hit, no pass breakup or anything like that. Like, okay, I didn't think he had a bad game. It was more of but it wasn't like the take over and dominate kind of game, right? I think he held the edge well when they ran to his side. I think he made a couple plays in the running game, but like got some pressure, but none of the big plays. There's going to be games when Darrell Taylor's not going to have 2 sacks every week, so maybe Montez Sweat's the one who gets a sack or 2 in that game. Like, there's going to be volatility with this Bears team, and that's okay. We've already seen it from the defense, going from bad in the first half to good in the second half. I imagine against the Texans, they're going to give up some touchdowns, and then maybe they'll adjust again and have another shutout quarter or 2. I think it's going to be rocky along the way. So, like, let's not presume that everything we saw in week 1 is just going to be exactly what this team is or isn't at this point. The offensive line, in theory, can hopefully settle in a little bit more. Like week 1 with a new center and a new offensive scheme and a new quarterback, like they got to build some cohesion over time here. As bad as they were for a lot of week 1, there's reason to think that they can be better. Great, maybe not. Better, I think, is still possible for that group that has a young right tackle, a pretty young left tackle, and the interior guys, maybe Tevin Jenkins isn't young anymore, but they're still trying to figure things out as an interior and working with a new center next to them. And maybe you change centers given how poorly Coleman Shelton played. And also, every week you're not going to have a Velus Jones muffed kickoff. I don't know if we'll ever see a Velus Jones kickoff ever again. Like those kind of things, that's already been corrected. DeAndre Carter was a great return person in this game. So, that's another free drive for the Titans that's not going to be there every week. But also, the blocked punt for a touchdown is not going to happen every single week either. And the pick 6 isn't going to happen every single week either. So this was a weird game. It was an ugly game at times, but it was a fun finish. I think it was one that, I don't know about you, but I was sitting there kind of like struggling to believe that they would actually pull this off. Like, I didn't trust the Titans 17-3 lead. Like, I wasn't sitting there going, oh, this game's over. Like, as the Bears kept crawling back into it, we were still kind of waiting for them to still blow it. Like, we were used to the Bears struggling, making it close, and then not finishing and not being able to finish that and end up blowing the late comeback attempt. But this time they finished it. And maybe that's a sign of things can still be different this season and will be different with Caleb Williams as opposed to how things were last year with Luke Getsy and Justin Fields. Justin Fields also won his debut with the Steelers without the Steelers scoring a touchdown on offense, the same way Caleb Williams won his debut without his offense scoring a touchdown. So the more things change, the more they stay the same. Meet the new offense, same as the old offense. That's the Chicago Bears against the Titans. But I think things are going to change more from week one moving forward than they did from last year to week one as we see this offense and this defense really get back to feeling more comfortable within what they want to do. I do want to go through this Bears All-22 film, and I do want to get a little bit more in depth in some of the things that we saw in this game. A little more bigger picture reaction today. We'll have some time to sort of sit with it and talk through tomorrow some of the intricacies of what's going on in this offensive line, what's going on in this defensive line, what's going on in the backfield, the play calling and the offensive scheming, and a lot more to break down. So make sure you come back tomorrow and listen to another episode of Locked On Bears. You got to hit that subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to the podcast, because that's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. If you're looking for that second listen, check out Locked On NFL for more football talk or any of your favorite Locked On sports podcasts for any of your other teams. Your baseball teams, Cubs and the Sox, Locked On Bulls for your basketball, Locked On Blackhawks for your hockey and college sports as well. The Locked On Podcast Network has your team every day, all of your teams, including your fantasy football team and Locked On Fantasy Football as well. So I hope you enjoyed a Bears win. I hope you're making the most out of your Bears Victory Monday, and you take just an extra minute today to bear down.